So this is the last thing for today. We have heard amazing talks. We had a lot of really inspiring discussions. So grab a beer if you like, and grab a laser pointer. First, about the beer. It is a very special beer. When I was young, everyone agreed that it is the best beer in the world. What does this beer have to do with interactive documentary, you might ask, and that's a good question. This beer played a central role in the first interactive documentary piece that I made in 1996-1997. This piece was called Small World. Narbecker beer not only played a central role in Small World, but it also created a link to another interactive documentary piece that I made in 2000 called The Korsakow Syndrome, my first generative documentary. A research project to explore the topic of alcohol. The Korsakow syndrome not only borrowed one of the themes of Small World, but more importantly, the Korsakow syndrome is building on the same structure as Small World. To make the Korsakow syndrome, I built what later became a tool that is Korsakow, the Korsakow software. Korsakow made that particular structure easily available to others and to me. This structure, of course, is not exclusive to Small World. Many scholars have talked about this kind of structures for many years already. Scholars in all kinds of disciplines, not only film studies, but also in anthropology, sociology, biology, physics, chemistry, even math. This is, of course, the structure of interactive generative documentary. At least this is how we might call it. Other disciplines have many other names for it. What is the relational practice of nature, basically? Or from another angle, without Korsakow, I would not be here today. Korsakow is a tool that became formative for me, certainly for my life, but more importantly, it formed the way I think. I think that Korsakow shaped my thinking not because I built it, because I actually forgot how I built it. It's made in an ancient language that has been long time forgotten, but because I practiced with it. An intense practice almost on a daily basis. For many years, 2 decades in fact. I practiced thinking and writing and expressing through relational practice, in practice, by doing. This doing did something that made me see the world differently. So this explains the beer. Now about the laser pointers. With laser pointers, the audience takes on the role of the conductor in what is called a Korsakow show. The setup here is a modified version of the methods I have developed in collaboration with the German writer, poet, and lecturer of literary writing, Tobias Hülswit. We developed these methods for a series of 16 Korsakow shows that were conducted in 2009 and 10 at Kammerspiele in München, which is a well-established experimental theater in Germany. At the center of a Korsakow show is a Korsakow film. With laser pointers, the audience collectively votes on which, and in this case, this is a special Korsakow film. I've never done it like that. This is a word-based Korsakow film, mainly word-based. So the audience collectively votes on which word or concept is discussed next. On the panel, there are 3 experts seated with many years of experience with different but structurally very similar tools to the practice that I've done. After a word or concept has been selected by an expert, is chosen by random, to talk about how the practice of doing interactive documentary might have influenced the thinking of that person in regards to the selected word or concept. The expert can always say pause, and if the word or concept doesn't speak to him or her. After an expert has spoken, the next word is selected by the audience. We will do that for 45 minutes, and then we will go for dinner. Yeah, no discussion, no Q&A. When the clock rings, the experiment is over. Not to evaluate the outcome of the experiment immediately is part of the method. So may you please choose a word. And could you please? Okay, so it is a relational thing. Well, yeah, okay, could you? Yeah, right. Co-creation. Okay, good. So could you please roll the dice?
That's me. Co-creation. Well, I guess, I don't even know if I'm going to say anything that I didn't say already today, but obviously making with Korsakow sort of really got me into this, like, oh, I'm co-creating with a tool. Like, the computer is my partner, and I'm not imposing. I'm not going to scribble something and make a big plan and then I translate it into the system after the fact. I'm going to really start from the first second. I will take my tool seriously and I'm going to film things with Korsakow in mind already. I'm filming it for Korsakow, and then Korsakow and me are going to work out what I filmed, and then I'm going to go back and film more, and then this is just how the process unfolds. And this is really what Adrian Miles was teaching at the non-fiction lab at RMIT, and which I then started experimenting with as well. And I thought that this type of co-creation really makes sense not only with Korsakow, but with every tool that we use. Like, who are we to say that this is my intention, and and the tool is just assisting me and translating this into my vision. The vision always comes into being already with the tool. Like, if I'm thinking I'm going to write with Microsoft Word, then Microsoft Word is already included, and we are already co-creating if I want it or not. It's happening.
Could you please make your selection now? Authorship. I have to roll the dice. Yeah, where someone has to roll the dice. No one rolls the dice before.
Right in your face.
You can always say pause, you don't need to cheat.
Well, I guess, that's an interesting concept. For me, is that part of the co-creation things that I've worked on in the past has been actually working with authors. And that, I guess in one respect, as a creative technologist, my job has been to kind of support the authorship. At least that's the perceived wisdom. But then I sort of realize, actually now, as I look over stuff and get ready for the talk tomorrow, it is that that they're actually, unbeknownst to the authors, is that I feel that I've been authoring a larger project, where these are all kind of part of the larger puzzle. And maybe that's a bit weird, but it's also part of the secret life of the creative technologist, I guess. So, wow, it's sort of actually been authoring away too in a different way. It's a different kind of story, more sort of meta, abstract kind of story. So that's what that means to me. And that's sort of the realization that, that's how I've lived my life for the last 10, 15 years, so that's changed.
May you please select now, or vote now. So it is, well, yes, okay, oh, interesting, okay, position. Controlling my pen.
This guy is cheating all over the place.
It's really
What's
cheating.
this
That was
game?
cheating. I mean, why is it cheating? I mean, you can always say pause.
Okay,
There's no, you can't even cheat.
Actually, roll it.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You can say pause if you like.
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
Well, I want to do it, but I thought there was a thing in relation to opposition.
Make it up.
Okay. Actually, I think one of the most interesting things, or one of the things I liked the most about making a project was the space it created for really conflicting positions, for ideas that did not need to cohere, which a linear project either required or was much more about kind of creating conflict. Here, it wasn't necessarily about creating conflict. It was really about the possibility of different relations to an idea, different positions represented, and you could create as much space as you needed for that. So that was, actually I'm really happy I got this word. Thank you for that. Because actually that, for me, remains one of the most intriguing aspects of interactive documentaries, where really it doesn't need to cohere, it doesn't need to kind of build toward an argument, the stories don't need to fit well together. It can really create a whole bunch of space for different opinions, and as I like to say, with them rubbing up against one another, different kinds of frictions create also new ideas, I think.
We have already people voting, and it looks like
Extreme storytelling
is making it.
And the Oscar goes to
Neunmal nominiert, 4-mal abgeräumt. Im Westen nichts Neues gewann 4 Oscars, darunter für den besten internationalen Film, beste Kamera, beste Filmmusik und bestes Szenenbild. Mehr Oscars als je ein anderer deutscher Film bei einer Oscarverleihung. Der Historienfilm handelt von den schrecklichen Erlebnissen eines jungen deutschen Soldaten an der Westfront während des Ersten Weltkriegs.
Thank you. God, this means so much to us. So I met so many new friends on this movie.
Oh, it's me again. Extreme? Was it extreme? Storytelling. Not sure about the extreme part. I guess, yeah, just going back to Adrian Miles and the point he was sort of hammering home was that,
sorry, I have no story.
yes, exactly, like he just kept on going how story is colonizing, we are colonizing the world with stories, and the world isn't made of stories, we are bringing this, we are imposing this story, and then I'm thinking of you and talking about the norm, like the extremes, and then that middle bit that is normal, or the end bits, the margins that are. What's happening?
Okay, all kinds of things are happening, including the all quiet on the Western Front.
The mundane, or the everyday, which really gets more center stage when you do interactive documentary, I think. and it really invites you to look at these things that don't fit extreme storytelling. But that's actually how our life unfolds. It unfolds in the mundane and the everyday, and it's not a big spectacle. It happens every now and then maybe, but it's the question of where we put the spotlight.
All the words come from the talk.
No, from our abstract.
Except from the abstract, sorry. Okay,
Energy.
Which talk is that from?
Yeah, right?
Oh, Mike. Use the.
Look at these people. Well, I guess, what do I have to say about energy? The way I hear it in relation to interactive documentary is electricity and bandwidth and more kind of the energy required. Actually, I'd love to have somebody, I'm certainly not going to do it myself, but do an analysis actually of what these projects require in terms of energy. And I say this, I said it also this morning, that I really hadn't clocked this. I hadn't thought about it at all when I first started the project, and then by the time I finished the project, I was very much concerned with it, not only because, for example, the argument about who has access, who can watch these things, who can engage with them, but also because actually they are really energy intensive, and I do think no matter how much I would like to see this endeavor really continue to flourish, which it does seem like it's a bit of a precarious moment for interactive documentary. But at the same time, I would like us to be keeping energy in mind.
Please choose now. Well, the big dog is quite convincing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, participants.
Participants. Okay, I'll talk about the human participants just for a change. I'm really interested in the Tetra project to explore, because I've always felt this like that Korsakow and working with iDocs is really powerful in a community setting, and I've never tried it. I've never tried working with Korsakow in a community, and I'm just super excited to see how that sort of works out, because I don't think of Korsakow as an end product, as creating an end product that I will show to an audience. I think more of it as this process, and I really want to include other people in this process, and I'm interested to see how it's going to fuel discussion, because once you see in this prototype and the keywording that you do together, how it sort of then reflects back to you like a mirror, and then you can actually see yourself and your perspective in position to other perspectives, and then sort of open up the space where every perspective is heard and recognized, and then build on top of that, and then don't stop there, but then go to the next step and the next step.
Cool. So,
I chose myself.
structure, interesting. That is structure.
Structure, and apparently to me, I'm one of two. Structure. Yes.
Structure it is.
I don't mind talking about structure or structurelessness or very loosest possible structure or open structure. I think that we do need some structure. Absolute structurelessness, is chaos and is impossible to negotiate or navigate. But at the same time, I'm so attracted to the possibility of these very open structures, of the ones where there are still infinite possibilities, where you can kind of, in some sense, imagine otherwise, right? So rupture certain types of habits, certain expectations, where you're not operating with the same kind of viewing habits, sense of drama, where the structure itself leaves so much more space for the unexpected, new connections.
Wonderful. Disparity structures place an audience and considerations that go into the design corresponding seconds notice. And I'm a bit biased here, so I would. Disparity structures looks very interesting to me, but okay, well, but it is
Consideration that go into the design.
Considerations that go into the design.
It's gonna be 5 or 6, it's doomed anyways. Well,
Doomed.
doomed.
You can say pass.
No,
That's
don't worry,
Florence
I will embrace my fate and follow my sword of design. But I guess we're talking about how these things change in our lives, right? That's
How has doing interactive documentary shed new light for you on considerations that go to the design?
okay.
Wording one.
So I remember, like the first day that I was at the studio that I actually eventually worked at, and I thought computers were stupid. Except I was at a studio, and it was a graphic design studio, and these guys were doing design, and they were considering it. And I thought there were a lot of considerations, but I was considering a career change. And to me, actually, this computer thing still looked stupid, but it looked easy. So I said, this is something I can do. And I hung out there long enough that we became friends, the graphic designers and myself.
No, I thought you were in the computer.
No, we didn't become friends ever still. But they were two brothers from Munich, of all places, so they asked me, did I know anything about the internet? And I lied. I said, yeah, for sure. And then they said, well, yeah, we want to start doing stuff on the web. And I said, that sounds great. And then so I became, without ever going to school or knowing nothing about the internet or anything, I'm a career. So I guess that was that was an achievement.
I'm breaking my rules here. I have to make a comment. So, because then guys like you changed the world, like with your mind, like guys. Like
No, I didn't
mindset.
change your world. I changed my
Yes,
world.
everyone's. So diffraction. Okay, diffraction it is. Diffraction it is.
You're rolling it.
Cheating. Was I cheating? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
He broke his own rules before, and then he just chose the word he wanted.
Yeah,
This game.
that's true, but I don't care actually, like, because I find them also interesting. Sexy.
You can pass.
Oh, like this, you can say pause, by the way, yeah.
No, I think diffraction was actually something that I thought about quite a bit today because of your diagram, your analogy.
Yeah.
I thought was a really great, nice and clear analogy of the idea, how ideas and bits of story and your one's perceptions and observations kind of form this series of ripples and refractions.
Fantastic. So, immersion it is.
Classic.
It's really classic. Okay, me, immersion. I am not an enemy of immersion. Immersion is good. I like immersion. I think there's an overemphasis on it, to be honest. And while it has its value for sure, I would like to hear people using other terms to describe what it means to be fully engaged in an interactive project, what it means to be really inspired by an interactive project. That I think the notion of immersion, I mean, you know, when we're fully immersed as non-amphibians, we need to come up to breathe, for example, right? It's not necessarily our best environment. And so I just think that there are a lot of terms that get thrown around, immersion being one of them, and amphibians not being one of them, and immersion, what was the other one that came up today that I was thinking, is that necessary? Empathy, right? I mean, empathy also good, immersion also good, right? It's not that I'm an enemy of these things, but I don't think, for example, inherently, these projects necessarily lead to empathy, for example, or necessarily need the full immersion or the experience of immersion for them to be effective, for them to be really interesting, for them to inspire people to think otherwise. And since I am concerned with people thinking otherwise and thinking anew, I think sometimes immersion could be the last thing to actually produce that result.
Thank you. Please select now or vote. So we have, okay, like, rational thinking, super.
Relational thinking.
Relational thinking.
Not rational.
Relational. Don't trust my words. Just the text.
Here we go, we choose ourselves.
Oh, okay. Well, obviously, I think that, doing interactive documentary, especially with Korsakow, really made me think about relations to begin with. Like, what are the relations between the clips? I mean, I do that when I'm editing with Premiere, for example, as well, but I sort of prioritize certain relations. I think that, this clip relates very well to that one, and this is my choice based on whatever, my aesthetic pleasing, or, you know, maybe my work that I've done, interpretive work, I don't know exactly, I don't really reflect on it too much, I just sort of feel like, this is a nice structure. And I think Korsakow really invites this, to open this up and think about relations and which relations are formed and what do relations really, how do they come to be? Like, I think they are really also something that we ascribe. It's a very human category. And I think it's a really nice unit of analysis.
Ladies and gentlemen, please vote now.
There should be a clock in this room.
There is a clock in this room.
Where?
No, it's this.
45 minutes. 45,
The
long 45 minutes.
theoretical is. I just checked if this box running on. Let me sit here forever.
I know. Seriously.
20 more minutes.
Practically.
Okay, so the theoretical.
I think you should like switch I think you should get 3 other people up here and
That would be super interesting.
see what they have to say.
Would you like?
3 volunteers.
That would be super great. Like, why don't we pick like the first 3 there? No, sorry. Is there anyone who would like to do that?
Nobody's willing.
No,
Judith,
I mean, this is
Judith,
interesting.
there's one.
No, I mean, like, would you, like, just,
Yeah,
like,
come
how would you
on.
feel? I mean, just, how would you feel? Like, would you feel like choose one?
Thirty
No,
seconds.
just the feeling. No.
That's good.
Please, check that out. How are you feeling about it? You feel you don't like it. Yeah, like it obviously looks like when I look at you, I see that you
I think it's
would not
nice
like
to switch it round.
Yes.
I think
This
it's
is so interesting. I
I'm getting a
know.
bit passive.
Yes, come on.
But that doesn't mean that I would have been on
You do.
stage for all of us.
No, let's give it a 3. Let's do it.
No. Because they don't like. Would you like to?
No, I don't have to leave, but I would like to.
Would you like to say how you feel about it? Like, you know,
Documentary, you steht in der
Franzi, how do you feel about it? To be on stage.
I'm okay. On stage, but I would also like
Yes, I know.
dynamic.
No, we're
It
wasting
looked like,
time.
because it looked like we had fun, but okay. Theoretical, like is that?
My turn to roll.
No, nobody rolled. Oh my God, we're not giving anybody any replacements. That's terrible.
No, you get no replacements. Basically, we vote on we discussed the
Should
rules of
vote
the
that.
game.
Yeah, the theoretical, that suits me. I mean, I think I really would like to advocate for at least to think about IDOTs in relation to praxis, where the theoretical very much informs the practice, and it isn't about kind of just making, but really tied to having to work through theoretically what is possible here and what it is we're doing, not only because it's still to this day fairly new and needs to be thought about, but because I think that might keep it, I want to say honest, but what I probably really mean is political. That we kind of continue to sort of press and push and think better about what this practice is and what it can achieve, what it can do. Because otherwise, I mean, I don't think it will survive if we just sort of let it do its thing. I think this is actually something that we need to continue to think and rethink and understand what its particular potential is, and that requires theory.
Ladies and gentlemen, please go now.
I'm rolling.
Place. Places.
Yeah? We're good?
Place.
Are you?
I think I'm pass.
Huh? I'm not sure. You can pass.
Yeah, you can pass. Oh, no, that's you now.
Oh,
Yeah, that's
training three.
right. That's you now.
I see. Yeah, you
got it.
You know,
Pay attention.
even I didn't get it. Place. I don't know. Actually, I kind of need to pass too. I don't really know what to say about
You can say pass.
pass. Which only leaves Mike, so we don't actually have to.
But I think that's my word.
Wow, that's
But I'm
good.
wondering whether I should pass because I'll talk about it tomorrow. But I can talk about it now.
Just a little, just like a preview.
Like 2 words.
Teaser.
Teaser, yeah, trailer. And how that affects one's life. Well, I think on a prosaic life way, I think where you're born and where you grew up. I grew up in the country, the rural southern Ontario, so that's kind of affected my kind of outlook on life, that kind of like that of a farmer in a way. And then I went to school at university in Toronto. And I think living in Toronto actually affected the way I think, it's a big lake. I did a lot of sailing, and I think that's affected me. I live in Germany now, and that notion of place has definitely filtered into my thought and how I do things and what I make as well. So those things are all sort of like, I think, inextricably entwined with your situation is what you do, and what you do is your situation, and where you are is all part of that too. So, if that makes sense.
That explains the beer, by the way.
Yes, your beer.
Your place.
Yeah, it's what is it?
Same thing in a way.
It's like like French, the French like
No,
for
sorry,
wine.
sorry, we have to stop that because like there is an audience. Audience wants to talk.
Oh, okay.
Who's wrong?
Audience. The audience chills in the office. I think actually, to me, the audience is as a creator, and I think we're in a way we're all kind of creators here. I mean, we make things and we write things and we want to say things, and I think the audience actually is in my mind quite often the first audience for any sort of project is oneself. And that when you think, even as I'm speaking, I speak to I have like an inner voice saying, so this is the word I'm going to use next. And that when you make things, you imagine what people will actually see or think. And you do actually this kind of role playing, I think, that we do almost on a constant level. Like we're always role playing. I think role playing here is putting yourself in the feet of the audience. If I say this, they will think that. And yeah, I just ran out of ideas because I looked, you guys are all looking at me.
The audience should answer the audience question.
Okay. Time. Oh, is that like a hint?
Is it
But
deep?
there's a clock
Is it
there.
deep?
Like that will ring at whatever time he wants to ring. Check it out if you want to see.
I had a really strong reaction to audience. I couldn't talk about the audience for time. Well, obviously, time plays a big role in an interactive documentary. Because I guess what my students, for example, and a lot of people that I interviewed struggled with was that they didn't know how long is the experience, when is the project finished, have I seen everything? So it just gives this new idea to the viewing time. And Adrian actually talked a lot about small and the like intimate and the like, okay, just like for a few minutes you just engage with it. Like it's a completely different approach to long form where you sit in the cinema for 2 hours or whatever. So it's more like, think about it as more like, okay, I'm going to play with this work a little bit, put it away. A few days later, I'll take it up again and have another go at it, see different clips, and see how that affects me on that particular day, and then go back to it. And it's more like music, I guess, where you listen to a song multiple times on different days, and you always take something different away from it.
Yeah, all what you say is basically almost making me cry, I have to say. Please, your votes, please. So we don't have that many, no, it's 10, sorry, the time, I just looked at the clock, it's like 10 minutes. It was 10 minutes when I looked at the clock, I'm not sure if you noticed that was like a minute ago or so. So the next is
Second noticing.
second noticing, interesting. Okay.
So for me, one reason why Korsakow is really interesting in relation to documentary practice is, and possibly why the sort of work we do is the shape that it is. So it relates to this idea of narrating and monumental making. I'm really interested in work that observes the world and then tries to reveal emerging patterns in what you've noticed in the world. And for me, that's a very different ethical viewpoint than me narrating the world, or narrating my view upon the world, or me structuring pre-given relations amongst the parts. So what I really like in Korsakow and why we do this in sort of procedural generative systems is in what we might call autopoietic and emergent systems, is it lets imminent structures rise up, which is where I think it's got a lot of interest in things like ethnography. Because, and it's something I try and do with students, but they really struggle with it. But I do think there's an ethics where you learn how to notice in a quite open way, and then you look at what you've noticed, and you let the patterns emerge out of what you've noticed, rather than first saying, I will only pay attention to the wow things, or these things. So, in relation to an ethnographic practice, I think it's really interesting in the sense that you make yourself as open as you can to notice in a non-judgmental, you don't prejudge what may or may not be important about something. And then there's a way of working in Korsakow, which is pretty much what I've developed, which is where you look at your material and you sort of curate it, if you like, inside Korsakow to then see, it's like a second noticing, to then see these seem to be the things that are going on here. And you use that to sort of find the structure. And there's a relationship between me and the world there that I think is really ethically important, because it's not me imposing myself upon the world by telling a story first, or by imposing my will upon it first. And you know, I think that sort of informs a lot of what I do.
Can we just ask Franziska to that?
No, you have to roll the dice. You can always say pause. Come on.
Can you just roll yourself?
I don't even know what to add to that.
You can.
Well, I mean, obviously this process that he developed with the trying to be as agnostic and having an open stance, it feels almost impossible. When you have to start a research project with a question, and you have written something and you've got money for it, so you're not starting nowhere, you already have a starting point. But then dropping back again. And I mean, for him it was, I guess for the people at the Nonfiction Lab, it was a bit easier to do this because they came from this art space, and the practice was maybe informing the theory. And for me, I came from theory, and I had all this theory in my mind, and then going out into the world and notice things, and then put them into Korsakow in an equal, like in a random structure, and then letting that speak back to me for the second noticing was really difficult, and we struggled with the students as well. And we brought these categories that we had from theory, and we sort of tried to make keywords out of these categories. And I felt like this wasn't really doing justice to this, the noticing of the structures that are imminent in what you filmed. But I think it's really relevant for ethnography. Like, this is actually how we should do ethnography. We should just go out and just look at the patterns that emerge when we are there, and not presuppose anything else. And I'm just going to follow this person because I said that this was going to be my participant, and everything else that's happening, I'm not going to look at.
Still 5 minutes. Is that possible? Is it still 5? I mean, okay, because this is a new talk. I'm not sure.
It's feeling long. Dissipative structures.
Ah, yeah.
No, it's not. Any other?
chaos is such a misunderstood word. You see, for many people, chaos means disorder. Curiously, chaos, as studied in modern science, and many people speak about the new science of chaos, chaos is a type of order. It's a type of unstable order in which the temporal sequences are very complex. You see, our classical idea was that molecules are colliding at random, you know, like dust particles. How would they produce coherence? And now we see that non-equilibrium can produce coherence, can produce structures, can produce very complex patterns, and which permit us to see, to understand, I would say, much better the type of structures which we see in the world around us. You need more anarchy in your terms, you see. You need more various activities, more multiple views. The metaphor of the view of the world which we have today is art. Is art in the sense that it is something which contains both laws and events. Like we see now in nonlinear systems, we come to breaking points, we have new possibilities. Before we come to the breaking points, it's more or less deterministic. When we are at the breaking points, we have many choices.
Maybe you could speak to this, because this is not from our talks, this is from
actually, I wrote the rules a couple. They could have explained the rules a bit better, but like,
Just speak to it.
because I mean the rules. Anyway, so yeah, that came up on YouTube a couple of days ago. So I just put it in. I thought that it's interesting. Like these were like random pieces that I found interesting. And the other thing was of Adrian Miles. This was like from the interviews that Franzi did, like that were like 2-3 hours long or so. I listened to them all or so, and then also wanted to send me like a clip that she thought that is meaningful to whatever she understood about like conference. So that was your clip, right?
Yeah, but that's good. Yeah. It's just.
That was random. That was it just yeah, it spoke to me. Yeah, came out on YouTube, and I thought like maybe it's interesting. I wasn't sure, but because it's so not related, right? I mean, it's chemistry. It's like such a long time ago, and you know, like how funny that is, and like there are all these guys like sitting there on stage or so. There are all these, you know.
But he says
that it's random.
You need more anarchy. It's so good.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You need
it's
more
crazy.
anarchy. I love it.
Yeah, of course, that is
like
stuff
our
that's up on
motto.
YouTube.
You need more anarchy.
Someone, Jason, sorry.
What was the term?
Disappeared. Google and we won a Nobel Prize for it.
Well, what was it? What was the symbol of it?
Okay. Sorry.
No, don't talk about it.
If it's not I want to talk about it, but it's not discussion.
Frederick Rubin was it? Frederick Rubin noch?
No. It was actually just a book, yeah. But that was also around the same topic. So, please.